Good morning, everyone. My name is Angela, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm the CLO at UC Berkeley campus, and more importantly for today, I'm your moderator for this session. I have the pleasure of welcoming you all to Owning Your Career at the UC, presented by Andy Storch. I am so happy to introduce you to our presenter today. Andy Storch is an author, speaker, consultant, facilitator, and a connector on a mission to teach and inspire more people to own their careers. Andy is the host of two podcasts, as well as the Talent Development Think Tank Conference and Community. Most importantly, Andy is a husband and a father who is dedicated to living a healthy and intentional lifestyle and inspiring others to do the same. I am also very honored to be able to call Andy a colleague and a friend. Andy, I am so pleased that you are joining us from Europe, the whole way from across the ocean, to spend some time with us today. I could not be more pleased to be your moderator, to be here with you with this wonderful group of UC folks, so you can share your insights and your wisdom with our amazing staff here at the UC. My friend, please take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Angela. I am so excited to be here. And thank you, everybody, for choosing to join this room. We have close to 100 people in here. And I know we have several concurrent sessions going on, and I appreciate that you decided to join this one. I'm going to try to make it as valuable as possible, so you don't have too much FOMO missing out on anything else that's going on right now. But I know they're all being recorded, so you can always check in on others. I also, before I get into my session, had the pleasure of watching the opening keynote from Gorick, and that was just fantastic and really cool because the work that we do, he and I do, is similar and complements each other nicely. So I'll try to remember to refer back to that and even see how the work I do and the things I'm teaching here will complement some of the things he taught you this morning. But I think you'll find that you can take lessons from both to help you take more ownership and accelerate your career success at UC and beyond, wherever you may end up. So as we get into it, I'm going to introduce myself, but I'd love for you to drop something in the chat, say hello, let me know, where are you joining from? I know we have a lot of people in the Bay Area joining from Berkeley, but let us know where you're joining from, your location, your school. Always love to see who we've got in the audience. So we got UC, we got SF, we got Berkeley, we got San Diego, we got USM, we got USF, UCSF, sorry, UCD. We got a lot. Okay, we got a bunch of different schools represented here from the UC system, Bay Area, UC Merced. Good to see. Awesome. I know we had some Santa Barbara, at least from the opening keynote. Looks like a UCB, lots of UCB. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to have you here. Let me introduce myself quickly, and then we'll get into our session. As Angela said, my name is Andy Storch. I am an author, a speaker, a facilitator. I host a couple podcasts, one called The Talent Development Hot Seat, all about corporate talent development, one called The Own Your Career Show, more about career development. I consider myself a connector as well as a husband, a father, and a friend. I wrote a book called Own Your Career, Own Your Life. It's also on the poster behind me and available on Amazon. And I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. That QR code goes to my LinkedIn profile if you want to hit follow, connect. I don't write as much of a regular newsletter as Gorick, but I do post a lot of content on LinkedIn and love connecting with people on there. It's definitely my platform of choice on a regular basis. And as Angela mentioned, fun fact from me, and I'll kind of drop in some other snippets along the way. But last year, I moved with my wife and kids and my dog from my hometown of Orlando, Florida. And by the way, I grew up in Florida, but I lived in California for 11 years. I lived in LA as well as San Francisco. So I know the Golden State very well, as well as a lot of the universities there. So many friends that went to so many different UC schools that I met while I was living out there. And then I moved back to Florida to be close to family. And last year I moved with my wife and kids and dog across the ocean to Barcelona, Spain, just to have a different experience because it's something I'd always wanted to do. And I'm all about taking ownership of my life as much as my career and trying to model that for other people. But let me take you further back. I want to talk about my childhood and dreams I had for just a second. But I want to ask you a question. I would love to continue our participation, get our participation going in the chat. I have some polls and some questions I'm going to ask you throughout, but we'll start with this one. When you think back to your childhood, growing up, wherever you were in the world, what was your childhood dream? What did you want to do or be when you grew up? I know Gorick talked about wanting to be an astronaut in the opening session. Maybe you wanted to be a professional athlete. Astronaut is always popular, or a singer or a dancer. So let me know in the chat. What was your childhood dream? What did you want to be when you grew up? Okay, so I see doctor, actress, lawyer. Let me stretch this out. Teacher, FBI agent, writer and actress, doctor, lawyer, marine biologist, teacher, lawyer, NBA player, musician, doctor, teacher, baseball player, veterinarian, fashion designer, contributing to scientific research or professor, awesome, surgeon, writer or author, marine biologist. Wanted to own my own ice cream truck. Oh, didn't we all want to own our own ice cream truck? I still think that would be very cool. Marine biologist, uh, actor for sure, from E. Cooper. Hello, police officer. I missed that one earlier. Let's see. Anything else interesting in here? Nurse, singer, zoologist, scientist, a restaurateur, a singer, actress, doctor, teacher, chief surgeon. So yeah, so many great aspirational careers in here. And a couple of you, I think, put in similar to what I wanted to do. So when I was growing up, I was very into sports, obsessed with sports, especially football and baseball. And my dream was to become a professional baseball player. And I spent a lot of time watching this team right here. This is the Chicago Cubs. So I was a big baseball fan, and I was a big fan of the Chicago Cubs. This is back when I was growing up in the 1980s and 90s. And these are some of the star players from the Cubs: Mark Grace, Andre Dawson, Ryan Sandberg, Sean Dunston, and others, and Sammy Sosa. And if you're a Cubs fan, or you grew up in Chicago, Cubs fan, whatever, give me a shout in the chat. I did not actually grow up in Chicago. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, as I mentioned, but the Cubs were on TV every day, and we didn't have a team in Florida back in those days, long before the Marlins and Rays. And so I watched the Cubs every day, and I was a big Cubs fan. And I really wanted to be like this guy on the right side, Ryan Sandberg, when I was growing up. He was the all-star second baseman of the Chicago Cubs. Took them to the playoffs a couple times, 84 and 89. They didn't get too far. You know, they were always known as the kind of the lovable losers, the Cubs, and until they finally won the World Series a few years ago. But I was just obsessed, and I really wanted to be a professional baseball player when I grew up. And I did play a lot of Little League baseball. And yeah, Sean Dunston, absolutely one of the GOATs. He was such a great shortstop. I played a lot of baseball growing up. These are just stock images of kids playing Little League baseball. But I ran into a couple challenges with my dream to play professional baseball that perhaps you could relate to with all of the other dreams that we heard in the chat earlier. So one of them was that the odds were really just stacked against me. So I looked it up, and roughly 1 out of 3,300 kids, or 0.03% of kids, really boys, who grew up playing baseball in the United States, go on to play Major League Baseball, baseball at the professional level. So 1 in 3,300 is not very many that really make it on. So even if you're good, odds are you're probably not going to make it. And if I'm honest, I was kind of a mediocre player. But the other problem, the other challenge I had, was that I never really got clarity and had a plan on how I was going to get there. I never went to, I went to the practices, I went to the games, but I never went to my coach or my parents and said, hey, my dream is to become a Major League Baseball player one day. What do I need to do to get there? What things do I need to do? Can I practice extra? Can I have a tutor? Can I join a traveling team? I didn't do that. I kind of went to the practices and the games, thought I'd see how things would work out. And then when I got to high school, I actually quit playing baseball because I didn't think I was good enough to make the high school team. Now, that's a story I'll continue later on. But the reason I share this story, and why I think, many people can probably relate to this, is the lesson I learned later from all of this is that a goal without a plan is really just a wish. So it's nice to have a dream that, oh, I'd love to, become the provost one day, or become a professor, or run a department, or even get a promotion, or change careers, or I'd love to even like buy a house, or travel one day, or move my family to Europe. But unless you put a plan in place, it's probably not ever going to happen, right? And you think back across your career, and I know many of you have achieved a lot of things, but there were probably a lot of things that you didn't achieve that maybe you thought like, oh, that'd be really cool. I'd like to do that. But then you never really put a plan in place and it never really happened. So the first question I have for you is sort of a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer it. Although I always love to hear and see responses in the chat for anybody that's willing to speak up. Have you ever failed to achieve a goal because you didn't have a plan? And I can tell you that becoming a Major League Baseball player was not the only goal that I have failed to achieve because I didn't have a plan, right? There have been many along the way. After that, I went to high school and I got into math and physics and decided I wanted to become a civil engineer and went to college, starting with that major at the University of Florida, is where I went to school in my undergrad. And I ran into some challenges and I didn't have a plan for how I was going to succeed. And I gave up again. I ended up changing majors and to something completely different. And now all of these, and had more failures after that, right? But all of these failures did lead me to where I am today. And I'm very happy where I am today. I think we're all in the perfect place we need to be today to get to where we need to get to tomorrow, right? But when you think back across the past, you can probably identify some places where, oh, I had this dream, I had this goal, I had this thing I wanted to do, but I never really put a plan in place, and so I didn't really achieve it. Oh yeah, the last comment in there, E. Cooper, learning a new language, I can absolutely relate. I have been, like I said, I moved to Spain this year. I speak a little bit of Spanish. I wanted to, had a goal to learn more, and I have not because I didn't put a really strong plan in place for how I was going to make that happen. So I'm still learning these lessons as I go as well. All right, so let me tell you what we're going to talk about today. We are talking about owning your career. I'm going to share with you my 5 steps for owning your career, and I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. I like to hit you with a lot of stuff when we're doing a virtual presentation. And my whole philosophy on this is that you can take away from it what works for you. It doesn't have to work. It doesn't have to be everything, but you can take away what works for you. You can take notes, screenshots if you want. Always love for you to share out on LinkedIn and social media. And I'm going to also give you a link and a QR code at the end where you can get a free PDF download summary of this presentation as well, so that you have that and you don't have to try to go back to all the things that we talked about today as a reminder. All right, so before we get into the 5 steps, let me give you the foundation, what I believe is the foundation to owning your career. And I think this foundation will serve you well with everything that Gorick talked about and everything I'm going to talk about today. The foundation, first of all, first and foremost, owning your career is about taking ownership and responsibility. It's really about saying, no matter what happens in my career, I know there are a lot of things that are outside of my control, but I'm going to focus on what's in my control and I'm going to take ownership. I'm not going to wait for someone else to bring something to me. I'm going to just figure out what I want to do, and how I can get there and who can help me. And we're going to talk about those things today. The next part of the foundation is in self-reflection to build more of your self-awareness, something that I think is drastically missing for so many people in the corporate world and higher education, really in adults in the United States and beyond today, is people just taking some time for self-reflection. We're bombarded with so many requests and notifications and distractions all the time. It's rare to just sit down in a quiet place with a notebook and a pen and just think about, who you are. What do you love about the work that you do? What do you not like? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are you good at? What do you want to get better at? What do you need help with? What are your values, the things that you really care about? What are your priorities? What are your energizers, the things that you just really love doing? And starting to get a grasp of those and think about, why do you think and act and work certain ways? And what do you really want to achieve in your career? I promise you that taking time to do that, while it feels a little bit stagnant in the beginning, can be very, very valuable in the long run. In fact, doing that for myself is what really led me to what I'm doing now and being able to help all of you and more people, because I took so much time to reflect and then listen and learn to others. And as I was like kind of stumbling through and trying to figure out how to build the career that I truly wanted, I realized one day a few years ago that I now have a lot of the sort of experience and ideas that I can use to help other people with the same thing. And that's where the book came together, which I wrote and published back in 2020. Working and living with intention. Means like you're really setting an intention for how you want to live and what you want to do, and then trying to work and live within that. And then operating with more of a growth mindset, which many of you may be familiar with. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But really, this sort of idea of instead of, oh, there's one thing that I need to achieve in my career or my life, like when I get to director, when I earn this promotion, when I get the house, then I'll be happy. Instead of that, focusing more on constant improvement, right? Like there's no end game, there's no trophy to win in life. Like life continues to go on. Can we just focus on constant improvement and getting better all the time? And I feel like that really serves us well. So, with that as the foundation, the first step to owning your career is setting a vision and connecting to a purpose. Gorick talked this morning about, he showed the map and, looking at going from, say, New York to San Francisco. I think about that a lot as well. For those of you that travel with any regularity, if you get on a plane, when you get on that plane, you can be 100% confident that the pilots in the cockpit know exactly where they're going and how to get there, right? They have a very clear idea, a vision. And if you get in your car to drive somewhere, there's a very good chance that you know exactly where you're going, unless you're just going for an old Sunday drive, as people used to do, right? I feel like that's pretty rare these days. People know, you know exactly where you're going, and you probably have a plan to get there, even if you've outsourced that plan to Google Maps or Apple Maps or something like that. But oftentimes in our careers, we're just sort of showing up and thinking, okay, I'll do a good job and I'll see what happens. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And Gorick talked this morning about, being goal focused versus experience focused. And maybe you have some experiences in mind, the way you want to feel with the work that you're doing. But I think it's useful to have a vision for where you want to go in your career. What do you want to achieve? The more clarity I've found that you have in a vision for where you want to go, the easier it is to make decisions along the way. When opportunities are brought to you, when challenges come up, right? And we see these all the time, right? You think, oh, I'm in this steady career. I think I'm doing what I want to be doing, but then maybe your boss brings a new project or promotion opportunity to you, or maybe the department decides to make some completely different changes, and now you are forced to choose whether to stay here or do something else, or maybe your significant other gets a job in a different city. Things happen all the time, right? And my whole point here is that the more clarity you have on what you want to do and where you want to go with your career, the easier it is to make these decisions when they come up. And the more you can work towards something, which I find to be very, very fulfilling. Now, this doesn't mean that it has to be some grand, thing like I want to take over the world or become, the provost of the university or run the system one day. Maybe you're doing work that you already love, but it could be about, I want to continue the work that I'm doing, but I want to continue to learn and grow and get better at what I'm doing. So I'm going to make sure that I'm taking on new projects, that I'm reading, new books in this category, whatever it is that you want to do. I think it's important to have an idea of where you want to go. So as far as the vision is concerned, you start with the self-reflection, which we talked about, getting to know yourself, who you are, what you love and what you don't like about the work you're doing. What's the type of work that maybe you dream of doing? Allow yourself to dream a little bit of the things that you might like to be doing, right? I saw in the chat earlier when people were answering Gorick's question, people that wanted to be writers and get promotions and move into different departments and things like that. Allow yourself to dream. Then you might like tweak it to get a little bit more realistic, right? Because some dreams are more realistic than others. As I mentioned, I grew up loving sports. I still really do enjoy watching and playing sports. But my dream of becoming a professional athlete is pretty much over at this point, right? I'm 44 years old. It's virtually impossible to become a professional athlete. In fact, LeBron James is now the oldest player in the NBA, and I think he's 39 years old. I have to look that up, but he's younger than me, and he's the oldest player in the NBA. So sometimes baseball players are a little bit older. Tom Brady played in the NFL until he was 45, giving us all hope, but I'm probably not going to make it. So I need to set my dreams of something else, right? But sometimes we say, oh, I could never do X, but it actually is possible. So you need to think about whether this is like, it really, really is impossible, or you're just kind of holding yourself back. So allow yourself to dream, determine your desired destination, get some feedback and ideas, right? Talk to some friends, talk to colleagues, talk to your manager if you have that kind of relationship. And then take full responsibility, right? This goes back to what I talk about with owning your career. It's saying, hey, this is my dream for my career. I'm going to take ownership of this. I'm going to take responsibility for this, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make this happen. I know I'm going to need help. I can't do it all on my own. We'll talk about that. But take full responsibility. Use your vision to guide you with the decisions that come up, and then make adjustments along the way because we know things are going to change. As I mentioned, the economy changes, the company or the university or system strategy changes, your boss changes, your spouse changes or gets a job in a different city, whatever it is. Like things change, right? So here's our first poll question, if we can bring this up, is do you have a clear vision for where you want to go in your career? So the first poll question, here it is coming up now, is do you have a clear vision for where you want to go in your career? And this is like, hey, I have a pretty good idea. I want to continue what I'm doing and become, director of finance one day, or I want to actually change and I want to get into HR, or I want to become a tenured professor, or whatever it is. Or you'd be like, I kind of have an idea, but I'm still sorting that out. Or you might be in the third bucket and say like, no, you know what? I've been working for 5 years. I've been just figuring this whole thing out. And I'm just starting to work on that now, or I never really thought about setting a clear vision for where I want to go. All of those are good answers. There's no bad, and there's certainly no judgment here. As you'll find, throughout everything I do, I like to lead with curiosity and empathy, and never really any judgment. Everybody's in different situations from different backgrounds. So, all right, it looks like we have 80 answers that have come in already. So about 74% of you. So if you're multitasking, you want to drop on over here and answer our poll question, we'd love to have you. So far, 15% of you say yes, you do have a clear idea for where you want to go in your career. 56% say sort of, I'm figuring that out. And then 29% of you are very honest and saying like, no, I have no idea. I need to figure that out, or maybe I will figure that out one day. I'm here to tell you nothing wrong with this. This actually lines up very close to what I see on a regular basis when I speak in different organizations, even corporate, private organizations, public organizations. It's usually lines up about like this. So there are a few people who have a very clear idea of where they're going to go, a lot of people that have kind of an idea, and then a lot of people that don't necessarily have any idea, and that's all right. My hope is that I will. Oh, we got to show the results. Okay. So yeah, hopefully you can see the results now. So what is this? 15% said yes, 57% said sort of, and 28% said no. All right, so let me keep going here. Once you have your vision, I think it's important to also think about connecting your vision to a purpose. And what I mean by this purpose is this is the why behind the vision, the why behind your goals, and the why behind you showing up to work every day. So why did you set this vision? Why do you want to achieve the goal? Why do you want to get that promotion? Why do you want to change departments? Why do you want to keep doing the same work that you're doing, right? Whatever you said to yourself, like, yeah, this is what I want. This is my plan. And, it could be goal-based or experience-based. Why do you want to have those experiences? But I always often ask you, okay, you set that vision. Why do you want to achieve that vision? And why do you show up to work every day? And the easy answer is like, well, they hired me, they're paying me for this job. But like, we work in a world where you really could go get a different job if you wanted to. So why do you work here, and why do you do this job? I think it's important to get clarity on that. If you're looking for more resources on finding your purpose, I have a chapter in my book about it. Simon Sinek is very famous for his work, like Find Your Why, and his TED Talk on that topic. Jay Shetty has a book called Think Like a Monk and speaks on this topic. And I really enjoyed in his book, he said, finding your purpose is sort of at the intersection of what you're really good at, what you enjoy doing, and where you bring value to others. And when you can think about those three things, because it's not just about what you're good at, it's not just about what you enjoy doing, but you also have to bring value to others as well. So you can start to think about the intersection of those things, but really just start asking yourself, why? You can always ask, why do I like to, or ask your colleagues and friends. You can do these exercises with each other, but I think it's important to dig into that. And the why, the purpose, the why is really what's going to drive you to get past the challenges, on the hard days, right? When you think about it, for example, you said, well, I'm going to go to the gym 4 days a week, and you decide to go after work at 6 p.m., right? Which is the dangerous thing, because then it's like, oh, I've got more work to do, or I'm tired, or my colleagues are going to happy hour. What is going to drive you to still go to the gym? It's the why behind, like, no, I really want to because, I'm getting in shape for this wedding, or summer's coming up, or I just want to get in better shape to be able to, live longer and play with my kids, right? Whatever your why is, reconnecting that can help drive you to achieve your goal. All right. So the first step was setting your vision and getting clarity on where you want to go and connecting that to a purpose. The second step is making a plan and setting clear, specific goals. Now, I know we heard in the earlier session that some people are goal focused, some people are more experience oriented. That's totally fine if you find yourself resistant to goals. I have just found that I achieve a lot more when I'm able to write down clearly the things that I want to achieve, whether those are career goals, financial goals, fitness goals. If you want to run a marathon, it's important to write that down and make a plan for how you want to achieve that, right? Especially if you haven't run before. Like, what's your running plan to get in shape for that? And by the way, I use that example a lot. I am not a runner. I've never run a marathon. I probably never will. I am really big into cycling, and I have been doing longer and harder rides recently on my bike, which is actually right behind me, my gravel bike. And it's important that I'm acknowledging that and I'm setting further goals. Like, okay, next time I'm going to go this far. I did this, and I'm going to keep going a little bit longer. And all right, Anna ran a half. All right. Hopefully you had a plan. So when it comes to goals, I'm a big fan of using the SMART goal framework. I'm sure many of you have heard of this before. It's certainly not new. I didn't make it up, but it stands for specific, measurable, actionable or attainable, relevant, and timely or time bound. And the reason I think this is so important is that oftentimes people put goals together and they're very vague about the goals that they want to achieve, right? They don't get very specific and they don't know how to measure the progress or the success of that goal. So for example, if you told me, I want to get into better shape, I'm like, okay, what does that mean? I have no idea, right? And the question I like to ask is, if I were going to check in with you on a Friday, say every Friday, and ask you if you've made progress towards your goals, would you be able to answer that question if I were holding you accountable, or your friend, your best friend was calling you or texting you every Friday to check in with you, and they said, did you get in better shape this week? You'd be like, well, I don't know. I think so, right? Versus if you said, hey, my goal is to lose 15 pounds and 2 inches off my waistline by going to the gym 4 days a week and eating this specific diet. Now I can check in with you on Friday and be like, hey, did you go to the gym 4 times this week, right? Did you eat that diet that you said you were going to eat? Similar with careers, right? If you just said, a lot of people say, I want to be successful. Like, what the heck does that mean? And success is actually a very relative term. It's different for everybody, right? I don't know if you've ever really thought about that, but your idea of success might be very different from my idea of success. For some people, it's money and prestige and title. For others, it's just being happy, right? And feeling like they're doing work that they love. And it can be different for everybody. So I would change that and say, hey, my goal is to get promoted to manager in the next 9 months by taking on 3 extra projects and getting biweekly feedback from my manager. Okay. Now that's something very specific I can check in with you on and, say, hey, Angela, you said you were going to check in with your manager on a regular basis. Have you had that meeting? Have you had that conversation? Have you gotten feedback recently? Are you working on that additional project that you said, or that certification that you said you were going to get that's going to help you get that next role? Have you been working on that? Have you been doing that? Right. I think that's going to be really helpful for you on your journey. So I'm a big fan of using the SMART goal framework and, setting a deadline for yourself. Some other tips that I have, and you can screenshot this or internalize it, make some notes. But the big tips I have for achieving your goals are: number one, write them down. Studies show that, and I think Gorick mentioned this too, studies show just the act of writing your goals down can increase your chances of achieving them by something like 17 to 20%. Number two is make a plan to achieve them. We talked about that a little bit. A goal without a plan is really just a wish. So it's important to, once you have that goal, to say, okay, I said I want to get a promotion in 9 months. What's my plan to achieve that? Well, I need to have a conversation with my manager. I know I need to get this certain certification. So I'm going to go sign up for that. And I'm going to put a study plan together, and I'm going to block out time 3 days a week for me to study for that certification. So make the plan for how you're going to achieve it. Break the big goals down into smaller goals. This is one that a lot of people don't think about, but can be really helpful, because sometimes big goals can be very overwhelming or intimidating. And I'll give you an example. When I had the idea for my book, Own Your Career, Own Your Life, that was in near the end of 2019. I decided I wanted to write this book, and I reached out to a lot of friends of mine. I'm very lucky to have quite a few authors in my network, and I asked them, hey, how long is a typical business book? And the answer came back inevitably about 50,000 words, between 40 and 60,000 words. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. Like I was really intimidated by that. I had never even written a blog. I hadn't done that much writing in my life. Like, how am I going to write 50,000 words? And I went to a mentor of mine named Honore Corder, who has published over 50 books herself, probably 60 at this point. She's written a lot of books. And she said, look, you don't really focus on that big goal. You break it down into a daily habit and you focus on just writing 500 words a day for 100 days and you'll have 50,000 words. And she said, you probably write emails that are 500 words long. And of course, my first reaction was, oh my God, I hope I don't write emails that are 500 words long. But it's possible that some of us do, right? When we're really explaining stuff. So I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I actually sat down and I made a plan and I set that habit. And every morning, usually between 6 and 7 a.m., I sat down and wrote. And I wrote 500 words a day for 3.5 months. I ended up with 60,000 words at the end of those 3.5 months. I didn't really focus on the big number. I just focused on getting that thing done every day. It's the same with running and training for the marathon, anything else. If you're saving, you're trying to get out of, pay off your debt, your school loans, right? Or save for a house. You just you're not going to get that big number right away. You just put a little bit in the account every month, right? Every week, and it eventually adds up and gets you there. So break your big goals down into smaller ones. Take initiative and action. I put that on there. It should be very obvious. A lot of times people set goals and then they're like, oh, I've set the goal. I don't know what to do next. Some people say never leave the scene of a goal without taking an action right away. Like you just got to get that momentum going. So what's the first thing you can do right away that'll get you moving? Find some accountability. Accountability is basically someone checking in on you, whether it's you holding yourself accountable, which takes a lot of discipline. Sometimes, you can use apps and things to hold you accountable. For instance, I don't know how many of you are learning a language right now that came up earlier. You may be using Duolingo. Duolingo is very good at nudging you every single day to make sure that you do your duo, you do your language. So I have, I don't know, a 400-day streak right now because it nudges me every day. So that's accountability. And then the highest accountability is when someone else is checking in on you, like a boss or a colleague or a partner, a friend, because we don't like letting other people down. We're more likely to let ourselves down than we are to let other people down. It's the big value when you decide you're going to get in better shape and you hire that personal trainer at the gym. Hopefully the personal trainer will teach you something, but the real value is when you sign up and pay for those classes or those sessions, you have to show up now. You're like, I told the trainer I would be there on Wednesday at 7 a.m. So now I've got to go, right? Or you're training for the half marathon and you have a running buddy and they're meeting you at a place at 7 a.m. to go run. You got to go meet them now, right? Or you're studying for a class with somebody for a certification. So that extra accountability will push you to achieve your goals and then get feedback and adjust along the way. That's also important. Okay, so the next poll question we have is, do you have specific goals that you are working on? So let's get the poll question up. Do you have specific goals that you're working on? And what is your plan to achieve them? And I would love for you to share, okay, poll question is coming up. So do you have specific goals you're working on? It's okay if you don't. Again, there's no judgment here. We're looking for honesty. And if you would mind sharing in the chat, what is a goal that you're working on right now? And it doesn't have to be a career goal. It could be a fitness goal, a health goal, a relationship goal. It could be a financial goal. Those are always really popular and common. So what is a goal? What's a specific goal that you're working on or you have right now? I'd love to see what some of your goals are. And I'll share mine. I'm working on my second book. Actually, I'm working on 2 more books right now, but I plan on publishing a second book this year. I'm also working on getting better at cycling and paddle, which is a sport that I'm playing here in Spain. And I'm also working on selling tickets to a conference I'm hosting later this year. Let's see what we got in the chat. Naima, mentorship to finance, finishing my master's, getting an additional certification, work-life balance. So Sandy put in work-life balance. I would encourage you to think about what does that mean to you? Because work-life balance is one of those vague terms that everybody just throws around. But like, what does that mean? What do you want to get to? Hey, is it right now I'm only having dinner with my family 3 days a week and I'd like that to be 5 days a week, or I find myself working on Saturdays. I don't want to work on weekends, or, whatever that means to you. Try to get as specific as possible so that you know when you've achieved that goal. Deborah, earning my MPH, finding mentorship, promotion, Andrea's language, promoting to a leadership management position, fitness goal, applying to a master's program, losing 30 pounds by November. Awesome. All right. So think about how are you going to make that happen? Maybe, and who can help you with that? Seeking growth in my career. Again, I would encourage you to get specific. I'm like, okay, what does growth mean? Is it learning new things? Is it a promotion? Studying for PMP certification, fitness goal. And oh, Calvin's actually training to run his first marathon. So look at that. Fitness goal, figuring out next move professionally, reading before bed. I like that. And Jessica, if I could just throw a tip in there, I do read before bed. I usually read fiction when I get into bed at night, but I used to read nonfiction. I'd read 1 or 2 pages, and then I would go to sleep. I started reading in the morning, and I find that I'm reading a lot more by doing in the morning. So, oh, Kelly has a goal of playing more golf. I like that goal, bold. So you can define how much golf are you playing now? How much golf would you like to be playing, right? And then you'll know when you're making progress on that, right? Level up to director role. Barb says better sleep habits. So again, I would encourage you to define what does that mean. I'm sure that you're just putting that for the sake of the chat, but it could be I want to be in bed before 10 p.m. All right. I want to be up at a certain time. I want to like stop using screens at a certain time, right? But thinking about, hey, what is it that I truly want to do? What does I want my life to look like? Angelina says a home purchase, changing career and taking classes in machine and deep learning and advancing in my career. So again, encourage you to try to get as specific as possible with these things. Remember the SMART framework. Get as specific as you can so that you know if you're making progress on your goals. All right, we've been spending a lot of time on this stuff, and I know I'm going to run out of time, but I want to encourage you to make sure that you're asking for help. You're getting help with your goals as well. I know that there's like a lot of us have egos and we feel like, oh, I should be able to figure this out on my own. But it's not the case. Humans are social creatures. We've been collaborating and working with each other and supporting each other for thousands of years. There's no reason for us to change now just because we're now working remotely and virtually and all this sort of stuff. We need to share our goals with other people, find mentors or coaches. Some of you even said your goal was to find a mentor, talk to your managers, find some accountability, and make sure you're helping others, right? I believe, whether you call it karma or anything else, the more you help others, the more others will be willing to help you. One of my favorite quotes on this is an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So make sure that you're sharing your goals. You're trying to help other people and you're letting them help you with theirs. Okay, so the first step was setting a vision for your career. Second step is setting a goals and making a plan. And the third step is preparing for the future. This is a big one. I'm going to go really fast with this one to make sure we don't run out of time. But one of my favorite quotes on this is the pace of change today is faster than it has ever been, and yet it's slower today than it's ever going to be. So that means things are getting faster all the time. We're never going to slow down. We're never going to get back to quote normal, right? So how do we keep up with this, right? I think the days of getting that college degree, right? And we all work in higher education, getting that college degree or that master's degree, and then working in the same field for 30 years without further education. I think those days are over, right? We can all agree, like jobs are being eliminated, new jobs are being created all the time. It's a dynamic world. So how do we prepare for the future? I believe there are 3 things we can always be doing to prepare for the future, no matter what's going on. Number 1 is to invest in continuous learning, right? Now, you work the UC system of higher education. Obviously, there's a lot of official education opportunities there, but there are so many other things you can be doing to continue your education, right? To invest in your continuous education. There's internal company resources. There are online courses you can take. There's podcasts you can listen to, books and audiobooks, conferences you can attend like this one, trade publications, networking, and virtual summits. Obviously, degrees and formal education is a big one. There's still some newspapers and magazines out there, not as many as there used to be, following industry experts. And then I have YouTube at the top. I didn't write it in the thing, but that's one where a lot of people go to learn how to do stuff. You want to fix something in your car or your house, right? Where do you go? YouTube. And then I think LinkedIn is still one of the most underrated resources for learning out there, even though there's, I don't know, 800 million or a billion people on there. I go on there every day and I see what people are up to. You can follow people in your industry, in your function, doing the work that you want to be doing. For someone that said they want to like take classes and get into machine and deep learning, you can be following people that are doing that thing on LinkedIn and see what they're posting about and writing about. There's just a great opportunity to keep learning on a regular basis. And I think it's really important. And I want to share a story with you, a tale of 2 lumberjacks. So 2 lumberjacks decide they're going to have a competition to see who can chop down the most wood in a single day. And the horn goes off and they start chopping furiously. And the lumberjack A, the woman on the left, is chopping consistently and nonstop for the entire day. And throughout the day, she hears lumberjack B, the woman on the right, taking breaks. And every 45 minutes to an hour, she stops chopping, and she stops for like 15 minutes or so. And lumberjack A, the woman on the left, feels very confident. She's like, I've got this in the bag. I'm chopping continuously while that woman keeps taking breaks over there. There's no way she can beat me. And when they get to the end of the day, the first lumberjack, the one on the left, is absolutely incredulous to see that she has lost the competition, that the lumberjack B has won and chopped down more wood than her. And she says exasperatedly, how in the world did you cut down more wood than me? I heard you taking so many breaks while I was chopping nonstop. And of course, the woman on the right, the lumberjack B, said, well, yeah, every time I was taking breaks, I was sharpening my axe. Right. And this is a story that maybe some of you have heard before. It was popularized by Stephen R. Covey in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but it's also been around for much longer than that. Supposedly, Abraham Lincoln told a version of this story back in the 1860s, and on and on. And the whole idea is that, if you want to achieve really great success, you got to make sure you sharpen your tools. And since we are all in sort of the world of knowledge work, our tool, and most of us don't work with an axe or a saw, our tool is our brain, right? And so the question is, when will you take time to sharpen your axe or saw? And the reason I bring that up, and we have our next poll here, is how often do you make time for learning? Is that most of us know learning is important, but we often don't make much time for it. And the reason for that is that it's not ever that urgent or pressing, right? We're bombarded with so many requests all the time, so-called urgent requests, text messages, social media notifications, emails, requests from our boss, our spouse, even our pets, right? Like, I got to go out. We don't make that much time for learning. And learning is as simple as reading a few pages from a book, listening to a podcast, listening to an audiobook, right? Taking an online class for 30 minutes or an hour. There's so many things that we can be doing. And so this is a great reminder. This is a reminder for you to make sure you're building in time for learning. It's sort of a long-term kind of thing. And you make money. Yeah. And as let's see, Deborah said, being in school right now, I have to learn daily. I like that. Yeah, and it's like money, it's financial, it compounds, right? And just, you got to keep putting in the time on a regular basis. I mentioned earlier, I try to make time. I usually make time to read a little bit of nonfiction every morning. I find I read a lot more when I do it in the morning before I get into my day versus trying to do it in the evening, right before bed, right? So think about when and how are you going to make time for learning? And this is, if we look at the poll results, by the way, we're pretty evenly split across the board. 19% daily, 25% weekly, 26% monthly, and 31% not very often. And for the 31% who said not very often, first of all, I just want to say thank you for your honesty. I appreciate you recognizing that. And then B, just think about, what do I want to do to change that? Is it listening to a podcast on my way into work? Is it maybe just reading a few pages from a book in the morning? Or is there, can you block out Thursdays from 3 to 4 p.m. to take advantage of some of the company resources, online learning, right? You don't have to go back and get a master's degree. You can just take it a little bit at a time, and it adds up. Okay, so the second thing you can be doing to prepare for the future is build your network. And there's been nothing more important for me in my own career success than my network and the relationships that I've had over time. And so many of the jobs, by the way, I've had many jobs before I went out and started my own business. And almost all the jobs I had in my career and most of the business opportunities I've had, right down to the opportunity to speak with you today, have come from relationships, right? Have come from knowing people and getting opportunities that are sort of brought to me because I know someone and they know someone who has this opportunity. And I think that more and more, that is how the best job opportunities, career opportunities, project opportunities are going to keep coming up. This is how we're going to find those things, is by building your network and building relationships. And I'm always curious how people feel about networking. I think we have a poll on this, but the key is here to think about how you feel about networking. How do you want to grow or improve your network? And as you're answering that, I want to tell you something really important about this, because I think a lot of people get turned off by networking or get overwhelmed by networking. The important thing to think about with networking is that it's not about walking into a big conference or a room of even 30 people and thinking, I need to meet every single person. And then you're overwhelmed like the 50,000 word book, right? You're like, I can't do all that. I'm introverted. I'm shy. Just think about networking as building one relationship at a time. That's really all it is, right? Garrick talked about meeting people this morning, being those bids that come your way, right? Those interesting people. One person at a time, maybe one person a week for the next month. You decide for one person a week, I'm going to meet one new person a week. I'm just going to send a message to somebody in my department that I've never really talked to before and say, hey, can we get coffee? Like, I've seen you around. I kind of know what you do, but not really. Like, can we just grab a coffee or a virtual coffee for 20 minutes and just talk about, I just want to know what you do, right? And just build those relationships. And it can really pay volumes over time. Some of those relationships may not go anywhere, but some of them may lead to new projects, may lead to friendships, may lead to jobs. Like, you really have no idea until you go out and build those relationships. And so I think it's important to think about not only building new relationships, thinking about networking as building one relationship at a time, but also reinforcing or going back to the relationships you've had in the past, people you've worked with in the past. And let's see, 42% of you said you love networking. 49% say meh, and 9% say you avoid it at all costs. No big deal. So a lot of you are embracing it, which I love to hear. All right, I'm going to keep going. I have some tips for effective networking, and I can share more of those later. I want to make sure we have time for everything, but the key is really to be proactive and to lead with curiosity, ask people questions, try to get to know them, and seek to add value before you are asking people for things as much as possible. Give before taking. And then you got to follow up and keep in touch, right? Everybody's busy. If someone doesn't respond to you, it's not because they don't like you. It's because they have 300 emails in their inbox and they're like, I just didn't get to it that day, right? So sometimes I just follow up with people like, hey, Angela, I haven't heard from you in a while. Like, let's get on a Zoom call and chat. Angela always responds to my emails. All right. The third and final thing you can be doing to set yourself up for future success is building your personal brand. I won't spend too much time on this. I'm actually writing a whole another book on this right now. But your personal brand is essentially your reputation. It's what people think and feel about you and say about you, even when you're not around. We all have reputations. We all have personal brands. So I think we might as well be intentional about building the personal brand. It doesn't mean being anything other than you're not. I'm a big fan of authenticity, showing up as your authentic self. But I think you can also be mindful about how you're showing up and how other people are perceiving you and be intentional about building your brand. And really, it's important to really think about, we don't even have to do the poll question in this one, but really the question I always want to ask people is, what do you want to be known for? Just think about what do you want to be known for? And then are you showing up in alignment with that? So I want to be known as helpful, kind, generous, inspirational, motivational, and fun. And I can ask myself on a regular basis, have I been showing up in alignment with that? Have I been helpful, kind, generous, inspirational people today? Or have I been selfish? And maybe there's some things I need to be changed. Other people tell me they want to be known for as someone that gets things done. They want to be known as someone who manages great projects. They want to be known as someone who is very helpful in the workplace. So you can ask yourself, okay, what do I mean? What do I want to be known for? And am I showing up in alignment with that brand? Okay, so we're on step 4 here. We're going to be going fast to get done by the top of the hour. But the first step was setting a vision for where you want to go. The second step was to make a plan and goals. Third step is to prepare for the future. Fourth step is developing a mindset for success. 2 mindsets I want to focus on here. And by the way, mindset is essentially your outlook and perspective on the world. It's how you think and feel about things. It's your interpretations and beliefs. It's how you perceive the world. And this can affect your happiness and fulfillment. It can drive your sense of success or failure. As I mentioned, even the word success is relative, right? Are you successful? That's up to you, right? Are you successful in a certain project? That's a little bit more technical, right? But do you feel successful? That's up to you. And the reason why this is so important, it comes down to outlook and perspective. You probably met people, maybe they're you, who think like, the world is a terrible place. Politicians are crooks and everyone's out to get us. And then you meet someone else who's like, the world's wonderful. People are so caring and kind. I love life. And you're like, how do these 2 people live in the same world, right? The truth is they live on the same planet, maybe even the same city, but they have very different outlooks on life. And a lot of that may be informed by their backgrounds, their upbringing, things that have happened in their life. There's so many things that have happened you don't even understand, right, in people's lives. But the point is that we do have an opportunity to choose our outlook and perspective and really develop our mindset over time. I'm a big fan of developing an ownership mindset. This is taking full responsibility, focusing on what's in your control. I'm a big fan of believing that life happens for you, not to you. This allows you to turn challenges into opportunities, and I've faced many of those myself. Being willing to ask for help, as I mentioned earlier, and remembering that life is a journey, right? It's not just like this one thing that we're trying to get to. I'm a big fan of this concept, again, of life happening for you. I faced many of my own challenges, from COVID shutting down my whole business in 2020 to then finding out I had cancer later that year. I was diagnosed with testicular cancer that spread across my body to my stomach and my neck. I went through chemotherapy, as well as many, many other things I did to get healthy. And I'm completely healthy today. But I took full ownership of that situation and tried to do everything in my power to make sure that I was going to get healthy and overcome that challenge. And along the way, I learned a lot about mindset and how it can help you with different things. And looking back, I truly believe that that experience happened for me so that I get to share my story and help other people who might be going through similar experiences. And I've since created a document that lays out all of my experience and my research and recommendations. It's on my website for free at andystorch.com/cancer. For anybody that happens to be going through that experience, I believe that I went through that so that I can help others. And you have been through your own challenges. Everything in life, I believe, is happening for you so that you can get stronger, so you can help others. We don't always know the reason in the short run, but it often comes to us in the long run. The other mindset that I'm a big fan of is operating with a growth mindset. This comes from the book Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck, who's a Stanford professor across the road. But this book had a very profound impact on my life. When I read it in 2016, I realized I grew up with a very fixed mindset. Dr. Dweck posited people with a fixed mindset tend to believe everything in life is fixed. Either smart or you're not, you're good at something or you're not. And therefore you tend to shy away from hard things because that you haven't done before, because we don't like failure. Whereas people with a growth mindset believe we can always learn, we can always grow, we can always get better. And that people with a growth mindset will tend to gravitate towards more challenging things because that's where we learn the most. And after I read that book, I made a complete shift and started doing a lot more hard and scary things. And my life has gotten infinitely better as a result. And I've achieved so many goals because I was willing to take these chances. I've also failed at a lot of things too, by the way, but I don't worry about them as much because I'm not worried as much about what other people think about me when I fail, which is the true fear that we have of failure. And that's a whole another subject we can go into. So the question on this would be, what kind of mindset do you normally operate with? And what can you do in the next 90 days to build your mindset? And I'll give you a tip as far as building your mindset. First of all, it's not something you change in a day. There's a lot of reading and learning and exposure that you definitely need, being around people with more of a positive ownership, growth type mindset, reading books. I have a whole chapter on mindset in my book. I like the book Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. If you haven't read it, I read Stoic philosophy on a regular basis. The Daily Stoic is a big one for me. And then I think it just starts with little things, right? Those things that would normally bother you, to kind of zoom out and realize it's not a big deal, right? When you spill that glass of water at home, or your kid spills and breaks the glass and you're like, ah, and then you're like, actually, it's not that big a deal. It's just a glass, right? It's not my health. It's not my relationships, you know? The other big one is when someone pulls a car in front of you in traffic and you're like, they cut me off, right? People take that so personally. What if you just step back and you're like, oh, that person's in a hurry. I'll just slow down and give them space. It doesn't really change my life that much, right? It's a profound shift in a small moment, but those add up to allow you to handle the bigger challenges that come your way, like when you find out you have cancer, or the whole world changes, or whatever, like things that I've been through. You've all been through challenges as well. All right, so many of you say you operate with more of a growth mindset or mixed, which I love to see. That's awesome. All right, I'm going to keep going here to our last step. Step number 5 in owning your life is owning your life and staying on track. So we talked a lot about career, but we've mixed in some stuff about life as well. You all have a life. Career is not everything. I hope I'm allowed to say that, Angela. Your career is not everything, right? Life is important, and you need to take ownership of your life as well. Take responsibility for your life. Get clear on your values, your priorities, and your goals. What do you want your life to look like? Whether it's, about getting in better shape, hanging out with friends, traveling, certain hobbies that you have. I think it's important to get clear on the things that are important to you and make sure that you're spending time on those things. You take responsibility for your life, your time, and your health, and that you take care of your health. Your health is something that is going to allow you to live longer, to work longer. There's no guarantees. But I'm a big, big fan of making sure that you're spending time taking care of your health. And I see the foundation of health as getting good sleep, eating a healthy diet. I personally am a big fan of getting lots of fruits and vegetables. I eat a plant-based diet. And then fitness, or like just moving your body on a daily, regular basis, and as well as mental health. I meditate every single day. I think that's really important to get some meditation or some a walk or whatever it is. Take a break, and then check in with your goals and your priorities on a regular basis, and make sure that you're maintaining your momentum. So we talked about setting a vision and setting goals. It's great to write those down, but like things are going to come up, things are going to happen. So you got to check in with your goals on a regular basis. You can use a journal, you can use a goal tracker. I have personally used affirmations a lot over the last few years, where I'll actually recite my goals on a regular basis to check in with them and be like, okay, I said I'm going to publish my second book this year, but like, have I actually been making progress on that? No. So I need to make sure that I'm blocking time on my calendar to do some writing and work on that book, right? I said I'm going to, I want to get a promotion. Have I gone and talked to my boss? Have I figured out what I need to do? Right. And find some accountability, like we talked about. You're going to get off track. That's okay. Just jump back in. I have plenty of examples of doing that in my own career. Remember, this is not a marathon. This is not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's a marathon, not a sprint, whatever. Like, it's a long journey. Be willing to pivot when necessary. I mentioned life as a journey. Oh, I thought I had another quote in here. It's not showing up, but that's all right. We'll go with this one. So this one's from my book. Nobody cares more about your career than you do, so you have to be the one to own it. So if your parents are still around and they love you, hopefully your mom loves you. She probably cares a lot about you. I really hope you have a boss or a manager who cares about you and your career. But truly, nobody really is going to care more about your career than you do. So you got to be the one to own it. You got to be the one to set the vision for where you want to go. You got to be the one to make a plan and set goals. You got to be the one to prepare for the future by building your network and investing in learning. You get to be the one to develop your mindset, and you get to be the one to take ownership of your life as well. So the 5 steps to owning your career, as I mentioned: set a vision and connect to clear purpose, make a plan and set smart goals, set yourself up for future success by investing in continuous learning, building your network, building your personal brand, develop a mindset for success, and own your life and stay on track. If you want to get a PDF summary of this, you can go to andystorch.com/bonus, or you can scan the QR code with your phone, just put in your email address, and you will get an opportunity to download a PDF. It's sort of like I think it's 5 pages, summarizes everything that we talked about today. I also have a podcast. I've read almost every chapter of the book. I have read every chapter on the book in the podcast. So the audiobook's on Audible, but if you're like, I don't even want to pay for that, you can go get it in the podcast for free. I just want people to hear it and listen to it. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions, comments, etc. I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be here. I hope that you got value from this. Reach out to me. If you did, let me know. Grab those bonus resources. The book is on Amazon. And Angela, I'm done with 1 minute to spare. Hand it back over to you.
Oh my gosh, Andy, bravo, bravo, my friend. Thank you so much for your amazing presentation.